Now, we already made a video about this earlier in the week. We spoke about how the Vancouver Canucks went out there and hired Ryan Papianoanu as their new AHL head coach. But in this video, we also spoke about the budget and what Francesco Aquilini and Canucks ownership seem to be doing and saying behind the scenes as to what the spending capacity for the team is. This is the article that we brought up from Patrick Johnston a few days ago. The Vancouver Canucks wanted Jussi Ahokas as their Abbotsford head coach, but he ended up picking the Colorado Eagles instead. This is because Ahokas, a guy who was coaching in the Kitchener Rangers system in the Ontario Hockey League, would have been making less money had he accepted the Abbotsford Canucks head coaching job than he was already making in Kitchener. This is the quote from Patrick Johnston that we were looking at. League sources have told Post Media that Canucks ownership have said they would like to reduce player payroll by up to $20 million. And it bears noting that they're already down $12 million from the end of last season. This is pretty significant because I think it gives us a little bit of insight as to just where the Canucks spending is and where the Canucks spending is going. What exactly it is ownership wants out of Vancouver Canucks hockey this upcoming season. This is already what was talked about in the piece, that the offer for Jussi Ahokas was substantially less than what he was already making in the Ontario Hockey League. Some sources went out there and said, yeah, a lot of the Canucks' new hires are very low in terms of the actual salary compared to the OHL. And they're also in Canadian dollars. But with this in mind, $20 million being the goal to reduce the payroll, and the Canucks already being down $12 million, it gives us a little bit of insight as to where the team can go and which other names could potentially be shed as well. There is some sort of a pseudo-quasi-trade update within this piece of information, and if you take a look at the Vancouver Canucks and their salary cap spending, it becomes blatantly obvious whose names stand out the most. So if you just review it, just do the math off the top of your head. Ownership wants the spending to be reduced by $20 million. Now they're up to $12 million. That leaves $8 million more that Vancouver needs to shed. And there are two guys whose salaries add up to $8 million perfectly. You have Jake DeBrusk, who is making $5.5 million per year. And you also have Drew O'Connor, who is making $2.5 million per year. If you add 2.5 and 5.5, you get 8. But wait, AAVs are one thing, actual salary being paid is another. Let's take a look at that. So, Jake DeBrusk, $4.5 million is the base salary this year. 4.5 is the total salary. Okay, that's 4.5. Drew O'Connor, on the other hand, he is making an actual salary of $2.15 million this year. So added together, that's about $6.65 million between O'Connor and DeBrusk in the now. That leaves another 1.3-ish million bucks that the Vancouver Canucks should be shelling off as well in order to get down to that $20 million reduction. Let's go out there and look at total salary. Here it is. So there are some other names that are floating around the $2 million, $2.5, $1 million mark. Max Sasson is making $1 million flat. So if the Canucks want to get rid of him, that also would get them closer to a $20 million savings on the year. I mean, there aren't really many other guys that fit it perfectly other than Tyler Myers and his $1.15 million retention, but I don't really know if you can do anything about that. If you take a look at it, I mean, total salary in mind, in order to get to $8 million, there are a few other guys that you could consider in this position. I'm thinking Marco Rossi is at 5, so that's kind of one that you could use as a building block. Maybe a Marco Rossi plus a Linus Carlson gets you pretty close to 8. Brock Besser by himself in isolation is also 8, but he's got no movement protection, so I don't really know if he is a candidate to get moved unless the Canucks really enticed him with a good team, like Minnesota, for example. We all know that he's wanted to go there. It's difficult when you separate the cap hit from the total salary, but that does seem like the goal that Vancouver has. They want to reduce player payroll by upwards of $8 million more versus what they've already done so far. You see, this quote was posted on the Canucks subreddit earlier this morning, and the comments are going in the ways that you thought it would go. Good thing the tickets to the games have gone down, right? Nope, they absolutely have not. Even though the Vancouver Canucks are in a cost-cutting position, they want to spend less, they want to cheap out on their hires, they want to cheap out on the player dollars, they still are keeping everything else the same for us, the normal folk who attend these games and have to pay money to buy popcorn and to buy hot dogs and to buy nachos. Please sell the team, another reply says. I think that's what's going on, personally. Reducing expenses as much as possible to make a sale more appealing. And I personally think it'll be a corporate owner versus a guy. Either way, the Aquilinis are broke. Another reply says, sell the team if you don't want to spend money. He's broke. Even more reason to sell. That day can't come soon enough. Blueberry sales must be down. Too many people getting that diarrhea parasite. Oh, by the way, that is absolutely terrifying. Have y'all been seeing that going down in the United States? Oh, nobody's going to go out there and eat fruits for the next few months, it seems. Francesco Aquilini's burner then said it's worth noting that DeBrusk and O'Connor make exactly $8 million per season, although you would have to add a bit of money to replace them on the roster. Yeah, those two were almost certainly the two that are going to be moved out. This article doesn't change anything about that. It's important to note that you still have to fill the lineup, so maybe $1.8 million goes back on the payroll just to keep a full roster. That would leave the Canucks at exactly $80 million. The floor is 76.9 this year, so they would still need to drop $3 million or so to get there. At this point, I'd bet they get there, so probably one more player still to go just beyond those two. Poor Ryan Johnson. What a horrible way to have to operate in your first GM job, with a penny-pinching owner who is going to squeeze the team for every penny. I have no faith that he is going to allow spending on analytics, scouting, or player development either. Pretty sure this rebuild will fail just based on ownership. When your owner is Scrooge McDuck, you can't be surprised at a Mickey Mouse team. Gosh, what a line. The aura in that last sentence is impeccable. When your owner is Scrooge McDuck, you can't be surprised at a Mickey Mouse team. You know, honestly, I was thinking more so of like Mr. Krabs. When your owner is Mr. Krabs, you end up with a Krusty Krab-like staff, although, to be honest, that's not that demeaning, isn't it? The Krusty Krab does some really good business. Okay, maybe that's a bad way to talk about SpongeBob and his crew, but either way, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This notice about Vancouver's spending goals gives us some pretty direct insight as to whom it is that may be moved out. Jake DeBrusk, Drew O'Connor, we'll see. These guys are the easy candidates to talk about in the Canucks trade because their salaries add up to $8 million if you look at the AAV. Total salary's a little different, but for now, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Canucks spending being this low? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.